how long can the SEC go without doing anything on regulation? Can they just ignore it forever? This is from Stone Trees. So brilliant question. So we do have a case in point, and that is the Ripple lawsuit. This little guy here, this has, I do disagree with the premise that the SEC has done nothing with regard to crypto regulation. The SEC has done a lot of regulation, and they're working hard. But I think one of the big problems with regulation is the regulators don't really understand the space. If you go back to the elephant, what part you're touching, it's kind of like the cryptoverse. You're touching the tail, tusks, the feet, belly. You don't know what it is. And that is the huge challenge here. It's never existed before, so there's no precedent. And that gives regulators a hard time. Now, the lawsuit against Ripple is probably the most consequential lawsuit for the industry. It has set some precedents as to what type of tokens should be considered securities. And if the SEC wins, XRP will be regarded as a security, and this will establish the legal standard that will classify all other cryptos other than maybe Bitcoin as securities. Now, when you look at other stuff that they have done, the next big thing they've done is the SEC did approve Bitcoin Futures ETF, and this allowed Bitcoin to be traded on the CME and regulated by the CFTC as a futures product and also as a commodity. Now, this means Bitcoin futures is overseen by the CFTC in order to protect investors. And I think I read somewhere that the CFTC has like less than a tenth of the staff that the SEC has. So I'm not sure how much regulation they can actually do. But it also allowed things like ProShares to launch BITO and traditional finance to gain exposure to Bitcoin through futures contracts, which some people argue puts a lid on the price, but it can only do that for so long. Now, guidance on ICOs as well. The SEC further issued this on how ICOs should be conducted, and the guidance established that ICOs should be registered as broker-dealers and explicitly establish the use of the Howey test to determine whether the token created from ICOs are securities. And the big news for us that like Bitcoin, finally, probably the most significant action that the SEC has taken so far is the establish that Bitcoin is not a security. And the reason of this is the SEC's views Bitcoin as a commodity due to its decentralized nature and its financial attributes. This sets the regulatory foundation for Bitcoin, allowing it to be safe from scrutiny from securities law and allowing the Bitcoin ecosystem to grow in light of greater regulatory clarity. Now, people that are building like layer 2s on top of Bitcoin, the jury's out if they will be classified as securities or not, depending on how the tokenomics will work and level of decentralization. I think it's very difficult to get something off the ground initially that is not somewhat centralized, but we'll see. But Bitcoin not a security is a big win. Now, Congress is the next big question. These guys, it's not up to the SEC or any regulatory agency to make the laws. It's up to Congress. And the reason that the SEC and other regulatory agencies seem to have been so haphazard in crypto regulation is because we don't have a clear and comprehensive digital currency framework. And this framework needs to come from Congress. I know there's people like Gillibrand and Loomis have been doing a lot of work on this, but it currently doesn't exist. And we knew it wasn't going to come out till 2023. So fingers crossed, especially with all the recent events of FTX, etc., we need something fast, as well as stiff penalties for scammers.